Can't turn off the heat?
Yeah, here it is. You're the pilot. Let's keep everybody up and warm.
Right.
Okay. Okay, on the bottom of Chav Dalet Amud Beis. So we're in the middle of the halachas about Avelos on the regel. And the Mishnah says, the Pasha says the Mishnah is talking about the regel. It's not coming to say regular halachas about Avelos. We're in Maseches moed katan. It just came in Agav because when it comes out, if Avelos comes out during the regel, the Mishnah before spoke about that Shabbos is Ola Ve'ena. Rosh Hashanah is considered 7 days, and they have Erev Rosh Hashanah, and Rosh Hashanah is 14 days. Anyway, Yom Kippur is going to knock out the Shloshim anyway. So Tais has the Kasha, and he has about 4. Seem to be difficult, but there are different possibilities. The Rishon do ask the Kasha. I just point out the Kasha and Tais is over here. Hiksha b'Taisvis harav ma anu tzrichim sheyeh Rosh Hashanah kishiva yamim b'la pachinami mutar legalech Yom Kippur tavi korbas meiso shmona yamim kodem Yom Kippurim but the men exer shloshim. Anyway, Yom Kippur is going to knock it out. So what's the difference if he says a nice kasha and he has many tzivutim each time he says difficult? So a good kasha. Okay. And there's the terrace also. The other issue we came out we talk about is about washing on Erev Shabbos during Shiva. Right. So I don't see the heter. It says that the rechitza we had yesterday, the rechitza is considered a davar shebetzina, and even on Shabbos they shouldn't wash. So I saw that seems to say that it's not proper to wash. There might be some, I don't know what Rav Nebenzahl said. We have to find out what Rav Nebenzahl said. They do talk about that nowadays. People are istanis, they're very delicate, but it's not to do Erev Shabbos then. Then it would even be during the whole week of Shiva if a person needs to wash because he's dirty or he can't tolerate the dirt. So then that's a heter, nothing to do with Shabbos. But I don't see that Shabbos is a special heter. I didn't exhaust the subject, but from the little bit that I looked, I didn't see that anybody that I saw. Somebody says that maybe hands and feet is mutter with hot water, even though the whole Shiva it's usher, even the hands and feet with hot water. But that's the most that they had said. That just for Erev Shabbos, maybe it's more lenient. That's also like what's the source for that? The Gemara says rechitza is called davar shebetzina. Just like relations is davar shebetzina. Rechitza is also davar shebetzina. So I don't know what the heter is special about Erev Shabbos. But again, this is just on the surface. If anybody finds more, please tell us. Okay, so the Mishnah says, Ein korin, v'lo cholzin, vein marvin, el akrova shalmeis, vein marvin, el almidas kufa. That the Pashas are going to learn, there's a machlokas here, how to learn the Mishnah if it's talking about the weekday, but the Pashas will learn, it's talking about during Chol HaMoed, that's how it comes into the Masechta. And on Chol HaMoed, it's usher to do more than necessary. So therefore, Kriya, which is clearing the garments, and Cholzin, which means Chalitzas Kasef, we said that in those days, they used to bear the arm in mourning, and Mavrin, which means the Sudas Avra, that the first meal is eaten of other people. The person doesn't eat, the other doesn't eat his own food, he eats the food given to him by other people. So only the relatives are allowed to do that. It means, since if it will be a weekday, so we'll understand that if more people want to do that also, they're also joining into the Avelos, even though they're not chayiv to, they may. But on Chol HaMoed, they're not allowed to be machmer. People that are not chayiv to are not allowed to. So only the relatives should do Kriya, Chalitzas Kasef, and Havra. And the Havra is done on a upright bed. That means that there's no din of Kfir Samita during the regel. The Avel is not knowing during the regel. Someone died during the regel, so they're not going to do all the Shiva. They start Shiva after the regel. And the Mishnah says that even Sudas Havra, you might think that they should do it on a Mita Kfuya, on an upside down bed, because even though there's no Kfir Samita during the regel, but maybe the Sudas Havra, since there is Sudas Havra, during the regel. According to what we're learning now, the Mishnah is saying that Kriya is during the regel and Chalitzas Kasef is during the regel. Means even though the Shiva doesn't apply, but things that they do during by the funeral, they do apply. So Kriya and Chalitza and also Sudas Avra do apply. And you might think that at least during the Sudas Avra, they sit on an upside down bed. And know that even the Sudas Avra is also on an upright bed. That's the end of the Mishnah. We learned it one way, that it's talking about the regel, and there is Kriya, Chalitza, and Sudas Avra for the relatives, but nobody else. And the Sudas Avra is done also on an upright bed, even though it's a Havra. You might think that during the time of the Sudas Avra, they should at least turn the bed upside down, even that also not. So just to point
Are we talking about the mourners themselves, that they should eat this meal on an upright bed?
Right, that's what it seems to say. Now Rashi does say the Menachem, and Rashi says the comforters, which that's probably what you mean to say, that the mourners themselves maybe would be on a
Overturned.
bed. But I think that others argue and say that even the Oval also, that since it's the moed, so if you look, we're learning that it means the moed over here, so not the regular weekdays, that during the Chol moed. So then they also are going to be sitting up on a chair regularly, and that's how to have Sudas Avra. Just
Okay.
a nice story that it's hard for me to hold back from, that there was a child in the cheder over here that they learned Mishnayos. They learned whole Mishnayos, Kamat. So he was a young boy, and his father or somebody in the family was a Avel. And during Shiva, means that the relative, right, maybe the grandfather, for argument's sake, the grandfather had died during Chol Hamoed, and his father was sitting Shiva, and they said there's no Sudas Avra. There's no, during Chol Hamoed, they don't have the meal from others. So he said, it's a Mishnah. The little boy, 10-year-old, whatever, he said, it's a Mishnah that says there's a Sudas Avra. You had this Mishnah. So if I don't know what paskin, but it's just to point out the way we learned the Mishnah, that's what it says. The Mishnah says that Sudas Avra, the other people besides the relatives cannot do it, but the relative does have Sudas Avra. So the boy said, what are you doing? It's a fresh Mishnah Mufaresha. So again, the Allah Lamais, I'm not saying, but the Mishnah we're learning seems to say that there is Sudas Avra also on the moed. Just the point is that nobody else should do it, only the relatives. You can't be machmir to do it more than necessary. The Gemara is going to go on 3 points now. We'll just highlight it a little bit in the yellow. Chacham Shemeis, Adam Kasher, and then also Shasi Tzis Neshama. That the Gemara says that there's a din to do kriya on other people also, not only on a relative. And that's what the Gemara is going to say, that our mission that says only the relatives do kriya means only somebody who's mechuyev to do may do it on Chol Hamoed. But that would imply that only the relatives are the ones who are chayiv to do kriya. I think Gemara is going to say, Chacham Shemeis, everyone's supposed to do kriya. And other things also, and Adam Kasher, we'll see what Adam Kasher is. And during it's B'shas Tzis Neshama, if somebody's there when a person is dying, when his soul leaves him, then even if he's not Adam Kasher, even less than that, also there's a din to do kriya. And the Gemara is going to say that our mission is not talking about that, but and therefore only relatives. But Anachanami, there is a din of mourning even on non-relatives for these 3 situations. So the Gemara starts, Afilu Chacham, you say in the Mishnah that there's only a chiyuv of kriya only for a relative, even if the person is a chacham and he's not. If someone's a chacham died, so only the relatives tear kriya. But Tanya chacham shemeis hakol kroba. It says in the Brisa that a chacham who dies, so everyone is his relative. Right away, the Gemara interjects hakol kroba. Everyone's a relative. Everyone's not a relative. Ella hakol kikro. But everyone is like a relative, which means hakol koron Allah, hakol chotzon Allah, hakol mavon Allah b'rachava. That everybody, not only the relatives, everybody tears kriya. That's Allah. When a chacham dies, everyone's supposed to tear kriya, and everybody does chalitas kasef in those days when they did it. And kol ma'avan Allah baruch. Everybody eats a meal outside in the meal in the square baruch in the town square. And also the point of Avra is that they don't eat from their own food. But anyway, he says that everybody is considered the relatives of a chacham. So why does it say only the relatives? If the chacham would have died chol hamoed, also the halacha should be that everyone should tear kriya chol hamoed. Everyone should do chalitza. Kol mavrin. The Gemara says you're right. Our Mishnah says only relatives. It's talking about somebody who's not a chacham. But chacham, then everybody would be tearing kriya, etc. The Gemara continues. Even not a chacham. But Adam Kasher also everybody's supposed to tear kriya. Adam Kasher that died. Who's Adam Kasher? So the poskim say Adam Kasher means somebody who would not transgress even any avera l'te'avon. Te'avon means sholi not lahachas. Even the te'avon that he has some reason to do it, if it's cheaper or the food tastes good, whatever it might be, he's doing it for his own pleasure, not lahachis. He's not doing it in spite. He's doing it because he gets pleasure from doing the avera. Adam Kasher, somebody wouldn't do that. It doesn't mean, I don't think it means that someone never fails. A person fails sometimes, b'shogeg, he didn't mean it. But somebody who, he stands rosh b'rosh, head on, that do the avera, but he wouldn't do it. So that's called the Adam Kasher. And even though he's not a chacham, but he's a God-fearing person, that he keeps all the mitzvahs and he wouldn't transgress a mitzvah just because it's beneficial for him. So there's a chiv kriya that any Jew that died, and even if you're not there at the time of his death, there's a chiv to do kriya. In our Gemara, that's what it says. According to our Gir says, but Farish Gemara, that there's a chiv kriya on Adam Kasher. The poskim say not like that. They must have, and they say there's a different Gir in the Gemara. But in our Gir, there is a chiyuv kriya on Adam Kasher. The others, they have a gersa, and someplace else that it only says that it's not considered makalkal on Shabbos. It's not considered destructive if he's doing it, but not that there's obligation. But in our Gemara, it says beferish there is a chiyuv kriya, but the poskim say there was a different gersa. They don't pass lamaisa. They don't pass like that. But a chacham, yes, there is a chiyuv kriya, even chalitza and sudas havra also. And Adam Kasher, our Gemara says there's also a chiyuv kriya, not the other things about chalitza and what is it? And Sudas Avra, but there is a Chiyuv Kriya. The Tanya, how come a person his children would die when they're minors? Like in what Avera did he do? So first it says, first the original Gersa was that in order that he should cry and mourn over Adam Kasher. So that's why they make it that his own children should die. The more it jumps up, they're taking him out, they're taking collateral before anything happens. He didn't do anything wrong yet, but they make his children die in order that when Adam Kasher is going to die, he should mourn on him. That wouldn't make sense. So we have to change the gear. So not kedei. This word kedei is a mistake. It should be mipnei. Because in the past he didn't. That he didn't care enough to cry and mourn about the passing of a kosher person. So therefore Hashem takes away his own child. Anyway, what do you see? And the Brisa continues, anybody that cries and mourns over Adam Kasher, as we said, a person that wouldn't transgress an Avera, even with Te'avon, so they forgive all of his Averas. They call it the honor that he did for him. So I imagine that it means that it's not, it's because he didn't do that, so he didn't get forgiven for all of his Averas. So therefore, his children might die when they're young because he has Averas. If a person cries for Adam Kasher, so that's the way to clean away his Averas. Anyway, the Gemara's point was, why does the Mishnah say that only relatives, any Adam Kasher is a din to do Kriya, and everybody should be doing it Chol HaMoed also? The Gemara answers you, right? The love Adam Kasher. The Mishnah must mean that if he's not Adam Kasher, so then even not Adam Kasher, but the relatives also do Ter Kriya, even on a relative who's not Adam Kasher. That he is Chashud to do an Avera or Te'avon. The Gemara Sakasha there, there's a din to do Kriya, even if he's not Adam Kasher. If he would be there when the soul departs at the time of death, so then his person is supposed to tear kriya, even if he's not Adam Kasher. The Tanya of Shim ben Elazar Omer, when someone is there at the time of the death, he's supposed to do kriya. Lamazah Doma, the Sefer Torah Shenisra. Any Jew that dies is like a Sefer Torah that's being burnt. Shachayiv l'Torah. Just like when a Sefer Torah would be burnt, Chalila. So too when a Jew dies, also the neshama is like a Sefer Torah. Also, it's supposed to be a kriya on any Adam Kasher. The Gemara says, you're right, the lo kol yasam b'shas tiyas neshama. The mission that says only relative is talking about that it's not a chacham, that it's not Adam Kasher, and he's not b'shas tiyas neshama. But b'shas tiyas neshama, when the person dies, that anybody should be tearing kriya, even if they're not a relative, even chol HaMoed. That's the end of the Gemara. And just to point out halacha, chacham shemeis, it should be true that there's a question about chacham shemeis. I will continue the Gemara. And the post are going to say only a Rebbe, even though the Pasha says a Chacham Shemeis, only a Rebbe. Adam Kasher, the post can say that even though in our Gersa says there's a Chiyuv Kriya, they have a different Gersa it seems, and Allah said they don't say to Tiana Adam Kasher. On Yitzis Neshama, that is the Allah, and it really should be that anybody that's there at the time of death should tear Kriya. I heard that there was some kind of a takana. I don't know who made the takana not to do it because doctors and things like that, the staff in the hospital, what are they going to do? They're going to tear kriya. That's very impractical. If there would be the doctors and the nurses, the whole staff over there that are there, so I don't know.
I heard a similar thing that discourage people from going to visit people.
People wouldn't want to come to visit the person at the death because they have to tear their clothing. Okay, that's a more modern and recent kind of a takana, if it's true.
When I was an intern resident, I did it.
I'm sorry?
When I was an intern resident, B'Shas Misa, I did Kriya.
You did Kriya.
I do it on a seam.
On a seam.
So you should do the side of my shirt.
And then you would be able to sew up the seam again.
You're right, yeah.
Okay. That says here, like a Sefer Torah Shenisra, any Jew, even if he's not an Adam Kasher. Okay. The Gemara has many stories now. The daf is going to be many stories, and a lot of halachas to learn out of those stories. The Gemara says on the first wide line, Rav Safra. So I just highlighted the story starting with a blue, and then the halachas to come out. Maybe some more than I highlighted, but that's the color scheme over here. When Rav Safra died, the other Talmid Chachamim, They didn't tear Kriya for Rav Safra. We just finished saying that a Chacham Shemes is supposed to, everyone's supposed to tear Kriya. Why? Amri lo gamina minei. They thought we didn't learn from him. He's not a Rebbe. So they thought that since he's not a Rebbe, so there's no din Kriya. Amalu Abaye mitanya Rav Shemes. Chacham Shemes Tanya doesn't say only Rebbe. It says a Chacham. So any Chacham. So you should tear Kriya. And also he is our Rebbe. And also we're constantly saying over his statements in the base medrash. So he is our Rebbe, even though we don't learn from him directly. But the fact that we say over statements from him, so we do learn from him. So therefore, there is a din kriya on Rav Safra. 1 second, please. Let's have something written down as far as the Allah over here. Here, the point is it only a Rebbe or is it even a Chacham? So, so the post can talk about these two terutzim. The first teretz says that a Chacham Shem is not only a Rebbe, and the second teretz says that he is our Rebbe. So I think the post can go. Could us notice it a second? 1 second, please. That the Rishon have machlokes if the first teretz is true. The minig is not to tear only on a Rebbe. The Ramah says, according to Ramah. So it means he's going with the second teretz that Chacham Shemeis might mean a Rebbe, even though it says Chacham, maybe Dafka Rebbe, like the second teretz that he is our Rebbe. So in the Gemara, you might have said that they're not arguing. It's saying, first of all, it's a Chacham, and he happens to be our Rebbe also. But the minig of the Ashkenazim is that only to tear on a Rebbe, not on any Chacham. So he said he should have torn. Sabra might have a So the Chachamim over there that didn't tear, so they thought that it's too late. It's true, he should have. Now that we found out this, what Abai told us we should have torn, but it's too late because we didn't tear B'Shas the first time that we heard about it, which what the Gemara said before, Shas Chimum. So now it's too late. Amalahu Abai Tanina, Chacham calls Man Sheoskin Vespel Chayavun Lekroa. Abai told them that the Brisa says that as long as they're still within their Spedim, that they're still saying a Spedim over him, so then they should tear. It's still within the time that there's still enough maybe his Orurus and Shas Chimum. And the Gemara said before yesterday, the Gemara said about Shmuel when he died, when he talked for Rab 12 Begadim. So that Gemara does seem to say that for a Chacham it's even not the first initial report. The Gemara continues several of the Mikra Alta, so they thought, okay, we're supposed to do it, so we'll do it right now. We don't in the Brisa that the cover is to do B'Shas Hesped. B'Shas Hesped, they knew there's going to be Hespedim coming. It's still within the week or two of Hespedim that they're still saying for the Chacham, and they were going to do it right away. So Abai said, wait for the next Hesped. That B'Shas Hesped, that's when a person gets more emotional, and that would be more covered for him, like the Shas Chimum that the Gemara said before, that it is better to do it B'Shas Chimum. So what do we learn in this Gemara by Rav Safra? That even, well, the Gemara says here, even not a Rebbe, any Chacham, and that's a question that's supposed to be if you're passing like that, but a Rebbe that even though you don't have direct contact, but you hear his statements constantly, that's also considered a Rebbe. And Chacham they should tear Kriya as long as they're still going on with their Spedim. And the best Lachatchila would be during the Hesped, which is called Shas Chimum, as the Gemara said yesterday's daf. The next story goes about Rav Huna. When Rav Huna died, then it goes a long story till the bottom of the page. That's all about Rav Huna. When Rav Huna died, they wanted to put a Sefer Torah on his bed, which is based on a Gemara in Baba Kama at the end of the first parak that says that it was a minhag on the great tzaddikim to put a Sefer Torah on the bed of the dead and to say that he fulfilled everything he says in the Torah. That's like a big statement to say. So they wanted to do that for Rav Huna, but Rav Chisda said that Rav Huna doesn't hold to that. He himself, Rav Huna, the one who died, he in his lifetime didn't hold to this because now we're going to do it in his death. Because Rav Huna said he's not supposed to be on the same bed as the Sefer Torah. The Amr of Tachlifa Anachazite Rav Huna, the boy the Mesa of Apuria, the Avamana Sefer Torah Alei, the Krav Kada Ara of Osif Sefer Torah Yilave. I saw Rav Huna, Rav Tachlifa said, I saw Rav Huna in his lifetime that he wanted to sit down on a bed and he saw a Sefer Torah over there and he overturned the jug and put the Sefer Torah on the jug and then he sat on the bed. So you see that it's also to sit on the same bed as the Sefer Torah. That's why we don't sit on the same bench as a Sforim. That the Sefer here talks about a Sefer Torah, the post Sefer Sforim also. So Al Mokasabar also Sefer Torah Munachale. So don't put him. So also in his death, the Gemara doesn't see a difference between the life and the death. Also, just like in life, it shouldn't be a Sefer Torah on the bed that you're sitting on. So too, it shouldn't be a Sefer Torah on the bed that the mace is lying on. You might have said a difference, but the Gemara doesn't see a difference. So they didn't. Then the Gemara continues with the story of Rav Huna's death. They weren't able to take out the bed. He was on a bed and they were carrying the bed out the door, but the door was not big enough to get the bed through. So what did they do? What do they want to do? So they thought they're going to lower it from the rooftop. They would go to the roof and lower the bed with the mace to lower it from the rooftop. Chacham Kvoda Derech Pesach. So if Chris is going to be here, always saying over things that Rav Huna himself holds. Before he said that not to put the Sefer Torah on the bed. Now he said, I heard from Rav Huna that said, Chacham Kvoda Derech Pesach, that the honor of a Chacham is to go through the door, not to lower him from the roof. So therefore, to him, we should do the same thing, what he holds. We should take it through the door. So the bed was too big, so they wanted to transfer him to a different bed, which is smaller. Rav Chisda said, I heard from Rav Huna that he holds that the honor is in the original bed, not to change from bed to bed. So you can't change from bed to bed. And the question is going to be how to get him out. First, the Gemara brings a proof. Why is that? Here, Rav is talking. Rav Huna probably got it from Rav. How do you know that the Chacham his honor is to be taken out in the original bed that he died in, that they put him into first? That's talking about when David was taking the Aron with the Luchos, that he was taking the Aron from the house of Abinadab. Over there it says that after the Aron was taken by the Plishtim, was captured by the Plishtim from Shiloh, and that was the end of Shiloh. And then Hashem made a Magefa amongst the Plishtim, and it was there for about 6 months. And then they returned it in a wagon with two oxen leading it, and it came to back to Am Yisrael. And over there it says that they didn't honor it properly, and people died. They took it to the house of Avinadav, Beis Avinadav in Kiryas Yearim. They took it to what's called today Telstone. They took it to Kiryas Yearim. Over there, the Aron was for 20 years until David HaMelech later on. He took it and he brought it to Yerushalayim. So here it says when David took it to Yerushalayim, so it says they rode where's that? They rode the Aron, they put it onto a new wagon. That's when that was the mistake that happened. David shouldn't have put it. And over there it says that Uzzah died. And so Rashi's appellate. Rashi over here says that what does it mean by they put it into a new wagon? He says it was the same wagon that the Plishtim had sent it back 20 years earlier. And from here you see the Aron, the same way we honor the Aron by putting it into the original wagon. So too, we should honor the Chacham that it should be in the original wagon. What do you see over here? That they put the Aron into the original wagon that was sent by the Plishtim 20 years earlier. But the Mepharshim say it's a Pella what Rashi says because it's open. So, this is not Rashi, by the way. This is the Pirush in moed katan is not Rashi. But the Pella is that the pasuk says openly over there that they chopped up after they got it from the Plishtim, that it came back, they chopped up the wagon. And the Pasha says over there they used it for the firewood to make a korban. They took the 2 cows and they brought a korban to Hashem. Over there it says, so how could you say that they had the same wagon 20? It was already broken up 20 years earlier. So they don't say a pshat in this pirush, and they try to find a different pshat in the Gemara. What does it mean that Galach Hadashah? How do you see that it means the original wagon? So some say it means that they made a new wagon especially for the Aron. So too, that's the cover, that whatever bed they put him in the first time, that's considered l'chvodo. Maybe the bed was made or designated for the take out the chacham, so they shouldn't change it to a different bed. Whatever the drasha is, that's what the Gemara says that the halacha is, and therefore Rav Chisda told them don't transfer Rav Huna to a smaller bed to get him out the door. Leave him in the same bed. So how do you get out? So they broke open the doorway. They widened the doorway. They chiseled it out until it was big enough to get the bed out. Then the Gemara continues more about Rav Huna. This is a story of his death. So in the Hesped, Rav Abba said about Rav Huna that he was fitting that the Shechina should reside on him. He should have Ruach HaKodesh. But because he was in Bavel, that was the problem. He wasn't in Eretz Yisrael. The Shechina only can be in Eretz Yisrael, not only Nevuah, even Ruach HaKodesh, that it only could be in Eretz Yisrael, and he was in Bavel, so that's what the problem was. But he himself, personally, he would have been fit that the Shechina should reside upon him. So over there, by the Hesped over there, Masiv Rav Nachman, by Rav Chisda, Rav Chanan by Rav Chisda. So someone was there that's the kasha. Maybe he said it loud enough that some people around him also could hear. It says openly in the book of Yecheskel that Yecheskel got Nevuah in Bavel. So why did the Rabbi say that the Shechina only could reside in Bavel? You see, Yecheskel had Nevuah even in Bavel. So Rav Chisda, his father, either was Rav Nachman Rav Chisda or Rav Chanan Rav Chisda. So the father of Chisda, he tapped him on his shoe, on his shoe, which means he was hinting to him. Rashi says one shot that it means that he was like hushing him up. Nobody should hear what the kasha was. And he's middle of a hesped. Don't interrupt the hesped and say kasha on the hesped. and he's going to also say an answer to it, or it says maybe like he hit him. Didn't I tell you not to bother everybody? It means Rashi learns that it means that you shouldn't ask kashas. Don't ask kashas. Maybe it means during the hesped. My haya shaya kvar. What was the kasha that it says haya haya dvar Hashem yecheskel ben buzi? That the word of Hashem was the yecheskel in Eretz Kasdim. Over there the words are haya haya. And what does it mean haya? That it was shaya kvar. So Rashi has two pshatim. One is that it's the pasuk is emphasizing that it's an exception to the rule. That it was a one-time thing, an emergency measure that Hashem gave him the nevuah. Or Rashi says that it means that he already started the nevuah in Eretz Yisrael. That's why even when he came to Babel, it continued. But a person can't start having nevuah, Ruach HaKodesh, out of Eretz Yisrael. The story continues. When they brought the Aron to Eretz Yisrael, they were after the Levi. They didn't bury him in Babel. They took him to Eretz Yisrael. And then the people reported to Rabbi Rabasi, they the Rabbanim of Eretz Yisrael, that Rav Huna came. But they didn't say that the coffin came. He didn't hear that he died yet. So when they didn't hear that he died. So when they said Rav Huna came, they thought that he came in his lifetime. They were surprised that he came. He said, when we were there in Babel, that he was so much greater than us, we weren't able to even lift our head because of him. And now that we came here to Eretz Yisrael, he's coming after us, as if to learn Torah from us, he knows much more than us. I'm not sure what the Gemara means, because what's the kasha? He came to Eretz Yisrael. He moved from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, not because of the Chachamim, because of the Torah, because of the mitzvah, because of Eretz Yisrael. But the Gemara seems that they thought that he was coming to learn Torah. So they said, he's so much greater than us. What's he coming here for? But then they explained to him, no, it doesn't mean that. Not that he came in his living. He died. And now they brought the coffin. They brought him to bury him over here. So now that the coffin was coming, so the question was, do the people go to be malabeh the Aron? And that's going to be the next point of the sugya. So Rabbi Rabasi went to greet the coffin, and Rabbi Chanina did not go. And the Gemara will talk about why not. And some had different names, that the ones who went and didn't go was Abila went, Rabbi Chanina did not go. Whatever it is, some people went to greet the Aron, to be Molaveh, to escort the Aron, some did not. The Nafak my time, what's the reason of the one who did go to escort? The Tanya, Aron over Makom, one verse says that when an Aron is passing, and then the corpse is being brought, transported, so you are supposed to be menachem the avelim on the way, and birchas avelim, tanchumi avelim means you do show the respect to the Aron that's passing, even when it's being transported to a different country. So here also, so they transported and came to Eretz Yisrael, didn't get to the burial yet, but if the Aron is passing, you're supposed to honor it. So that's the reason why some did go. And how come some did not? The loan of my timer. What's the reason of those that did not go to escort the Aron? The Tanya, because the Brisa says the opposite. Aron over that you don't have to honor it. That the coffin that's being transported does not have to be honored. So that's why they did not go. But they have to reconcile the contradiction. One Brisa says yes, one Brisa says not. Kasha Adadi, there's a contradiction between the two Brises. Lo kasha, kan sheshildo kayemes, kan she'en shildo kayemes. It depends if the skeleton of the dead is still intact. If it's already disintegrated, so then there's no din to be malaver, to be escorted. He's already disintegrated, or enough that the skeleton is not held together anymore. Even if the bones are going to be intact, but the skeleton is not. But if the skeleton is still intact, so then there is a din to honor the mace that's being transported. So the ones who went out, why did they go? Rav Huna, who died, he was still intact. But how come some people didn't? We said that it was some people did go out to escort, some did not. So we don't have yet the answer. How come some people did not? The ones who did not go is because people didn't tell them. They didn't get the whole story. They didn't know. They assumed that whatever time it takes for Rav Huna to be transported from Babel to Eretz Yisrael, they thought that already the skeleton is not intact. But really it was. So they should have gone out, but they thought they got the wrong information. The story continues. Where should they bury him? So then they were asking, they were deciding, where should we bury Rav Huna? And Rav Huna ribis Torah Yisrael, Rav Chia ribis Torah Yisrael. So the idea was to bury him next to Rav Chia. Rav Chia was very great from the previous generations, and they thought that since Rav Huna spread Torah, I'm not sure what the word rebates means, but that's a very common term now. They also have Batzas Torah, Marbitz Torah. I don't know what the word means, but if anybody has a shot over there, I don't know what the literal translation is. The idea maybe means to spread Torah, but I don't know how it comes from the word rebates. But anyway, it says Rav Huna also had in common that he spread Torah. So that's like a B'chia spread Torah. So did Rav Huna, so he deserves to be buried next to him. Man ma'ayele. Who's going to be? Now they were scared. They were scared to go and bury him next to B'chia. B'chia, we'll see in a minute how awesome it was. So they were scared. They decided that he should be buried next to Rav Huna, but who's going to take him in? Amalahu Rav Chaga, Anam Ma'ayel Nalei. So there was somebody, his name was Rav Chaga. We're not so familiar with him, and he said, "I'll bury him. I'll take him in to the Ma'ora, to the cave over there where Rav Chia was buried." He was saying that I could because I'm not scared because I learned the whole Talmud by 18 years old and I had not seen Keri. It means he didn't have a seminal emission all those years until he finished the whole Shas. And also, I served him. I think he served Rav, I think he means he served Rav Huna. Yeah, probably. He served Rav Huna, and I know how great he is. The Yom Echad is Hapicha Lev B'Suah the Tefillin V'Yosav Allah Abuan Tanisa. One time that the mistake that the strap of the tefillin was overturned backwards, and because of that he fasted 40 days. So he's so great. I know how great he is. I'm not scared to bury him. He deserves to be buried next to Rav Chia. Before it said because here it's Torah. Now it says because he was so makbid on even one mistake. Just to point out the din about the strap doesn't mean the ones that are hanging down, that it should be over there. It says it doesn't have to be the black on the outside. It says it's a nice thing. No, mitzvah is a nice thing, but you surely don't have to correct somebody else who has his, that's not a problem. It just means the strap that goes around the head, if it's overturned, so then it's not Yotze. And one day he didn't realize that it was overturned. He wasn't Yotze in mitzvah throne that day. So that's what bothered him so much. And also by the Shaliyat, the Mishnah Berurah says only the first time, not all the 7 wines, but just the first time that it goes around the arm, that's where you have to be makbid that it shouldn't be overturned. So he says, one time he made a mistake and he fasted 40 days because of that. The Mishnah Berurah brings down the Midas Chasidus that a person should fast. It's not Mechuyev, but it's a Midas Chasidus. Here it says 40 days, at least one time maybe, or to be poded b'tzedakah. That's also whenever we don't want to fast. So there's a way to redeem how much it would have costed him to eat that day, and he gives that to tzedakah. That's the side point of what the halach is about that. So Rav Chaga was going to bury Rav Huna in the Ma'ora of where Rav Chia was. Rav Chia had 2 sons, Yehuda and Chizkiah. So the Yehuda and Chizkiah's sons were buried on both sides. On the right was Yehuda, and on the left of Rav Chia was Chizkiah, and both of them were buried on the sides. It's the word Gani means lying or sleeping. Here it means that they had died and be buried over there. And now miraculously he heard the dead talking to each other. That Yehuda told Chizkiah, seems Yehuda's the older brother. Yehuda told Chizkiah's brother that it's not the Erecheres, that Rav Huna is standing over here and there's no room for him. So move over, get up and move over. So Rav Chia, Chizkiah, who had been buried a long time ago, he started moving to get up. When he started getting up, so it got up with him a pillar of fire. A pillar of fire came because Chizkiah is getting up. Rav Chaga was there. He's one who's burying Rav Huna, and he sees Rav Chia getting up. Rav Chaga, Ibis, he got terrified. Zakvei Laroni benafik, and he benafik. So he stood up the Aron of Rav Huna. He was ready to bury him, but he wasn't able to because Rav Chia has a fire over there. So he stood up the Aron. Rashi says in order to protect himself, in order that he like to be a shield. So he put up the Aron of Rav Huna, and he went out. And the reason why it was not harmed by the pillar of fire was because he had erected the Aron of Rav Huna. So what happened at the end? I guess Rav Huna was taken care of. He took care of himself, whatever it is, that he also lied down and he was buried over there next to Rav Chia. That's the end of the story of Rav Huna. A lot of different information came in. It started off about the Sefer Torah, and then it went in about Chacham. Not to put the bed on the bed of the Sefer Torah on the bed of the Chacham, and then Chacham closed up a Pesach, Mita Rishona. What else did it say about Aaron, which is over Makom Makom? Agav, it said about having Ruach HaKodesh, that it can't be in Chutz La'aretz, only if maybe he started having the Nevuah in Eretz Yisrael, then it could, even after he goes out, he still might have. And you see it about Yonah also. Yonah went out of Eretz Yisrael because he didn't want to get the Nevuah. And Aaron over there, he was already in Eretz Yisrael. Still, maybe out of Eretz Yisrael is harder to get, even though Yecheskel did. And then it talks about Aaron over Makom, as long as Shilto Kayemes, so then it is proper to escort it, but if not. And the story about where he was buried by Rav Chia, and I got the thing about the tefillin, that if it's it should be with the black on the outside, and if not, then he was a meschase to fast. Next story. Kinach nafshe de Rav Chisda, when Rav Chisda died. Before we spoke about Rav Chisda, was the Talmud of Rav Huna. He's the one who the whole time told them what to do. Rav Huna said this, Rav Huna said that. Now, when Rav Chisda died, also Saval Asuri Sefer Torah Purye. They wanted to put a Sefer Torah on his bed and say that he fulfilled everything he says in the Sefer Torah. Rav Yitzchak Milsa de Rabbeinu Spirulei, and not Nekim Navadlei. His Rebbe didn't hold of it, like he just said. He's the one who told us that his Rebbe doesn't hold of it. So we're going to do to him. It's also not proper to do it. Don't put the Sefer Torah on his bed. So then another point. Shavah Dalola Mishlal Karayu. Rav Yitzchak Barami. We have before the halacha about sholel. Sholel means like basting big stitches that after he tore kriya, so he wants to repair it. So there are two ways to repair it. One is wide stitches called sholel, and then there's a fine stitching, which is regular way of professionally repairing it. That's called to be ma'afer. Before we said that it's only mutter to be sholel on a regular mace after 7 days, and on a parent only after 30 days. So they tore kriya on the Rebbe, and they thought that they're not going to. Like we said on top of the page, we said a chacham or at least the Rebbe, there's a din to do kriya. So they thought that also they're not allowed to be sholel. But Yitzchak Rami told them no, that a chacham, once they turn their faces away after the funeral, also sholel. They're allowed to be sholel right away. There's no din to wait 7 days or 30 days to be able to sholel, which means not professionally fixing it, but just amateurs, some kind of basting in order to hold the beggar together that it shouldn't be torn. So that's mutar and a chacham right away, different than a parent. The next story. Hinach nafshe de Rabba nafshayu de Rabba bar Huna Rabba Amnuna. So two people died, Rabba bar Huna and Rabba Amnuna, and they were bringing them from the Babel to Eretz Yisrael. Askinu Hassan, they brought them to Eretz Yisrael. They were transporting the body to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Kimatu Agishwa Kamu Gamli. When they came to a bridge with only enough place that one of them could merge, the traffic had to merge. They were going side by side, the two coffins, and the camels were the ones who were carrying them. Two camels. So they stopped. The camels stopped. It means that, of course, camels have no seichel, but the Gemara is going to say in a second that both of them didn't want to be first. Each one was saying as if saying to the other one, "You go first." To honor, who should go first? It was a one lane now. So who's going to go? Amalu Alutaya, my high. So there's an Arab over there. He has, what's happening? The camels are not going. What happened? Amulay. So the people explained that the Chachamim are giving honor to each other. Each one is saying that you should go first. That's why the camel stopped, because each one was saying they don't want to go first. So he said, I think that Rabbi Bar Huna should go first. And Gemara doesn't say what he thought. Why did he think so? Who's he? The Arab. So there's another gears over here that says because his father was also a great rabbi. That Rabbi Bar Huna, he and also his father. And Rabbi Amnuna, he was great, but his father was not. That's what it says in another gears. So he said that he should go first. So that's how that happened. The psak of the Arab took effect. Chalav Gamli, the Rabbi Bar Huna, but not to Kachi Vishine de Hutaya. So the camel of Rabbi Bar Huna Taka went first, but the teeth of that Arab fell out. That was, it means he got involved and he slighted the honor of Rabbi Amnuna. So even though the camels listened, so to speak, but he suffered because he slighted the honor of Rabbi Amnuna. Then the Gemara continues to say the hesped that they said about Rabbi Bar Huna and maybe also Rabbi Amnuna. So now the rest of the daf over here, there's going to be a couple of hespedim. So I just highlighted that in pink, and the names of the are in blue like we had till now. So here there was Rabbi Huna and Rabbi Amnuna. Pasach alei Yanuka. Here it says a Yanuka, that a child. I don't know what it means. That a child said a hesped. I don't know what to make out of that. So this is the hesped that he said. Very poetic. All of these hespedim are going to be poetic. Here's the Yeshishim Malam Bobel. The emo. It's supposed to be emo also. Just the computer didn't allow me to highlight it. The emo Sefer Mulchamos. I'll just read the words and then we'll translate it. Kas v'kipo tuchpulu liros b'shod b'shever abo mishinor. Katzafal, some of the words, sword. Sword, katzafal lolomo v'chamas b'menu nefoshos. V'samech b'hem kikala chadasha. V'ochi v'robo sas v'samech b'voy love nefesh naki b'tzadik. So I don't know why the Gemara wants us to know this hesped, but the way it goes is that Gezi Yeshishim. Yeshishim is an old people. It's called the Yashish. And the tree, Geza Yeshishim, the branch, the trunk of the old elders came up from Bavel, and together with him was the Sefer Melchamos. Some say Sefer Melchamos means the Sefer Torah, that he's a Sefer Torah, or that it means that Rabbi Bar Huna is called Gezi Yeshishim. He's the one who's from the lineage of Rabbi Huna, and Sefer Melchamos is going to mean that there was a war between the two of them. Who should go first? Maybe that's why it's called Sefer Melchamos. The Kosmikov Kippur are kinds of animals, maybe owls, things like that. The animals that come when there's a deserted place. So they also came to see the trouble, the Shod V'Shever, the the plunder and the break that happened from Shinar. It means that this sorrow that these great tzaddikim died was a great sorrow, and even the animals are coming to greet, I guess, to see the problem. Hashem, Hashem was angry, means the fact that these two tzaddikim were taken away. Hashem is angry at the world, and he took away the souls, the great souls. And Hashem is happy with them that the neshama is coming to him as if someone marries and he has a new color. So Hashem is happy with the two neshamas that are coming to Shamayim. Hashem is called Rochi Barobos, the one who rides the heavens, and he's happy and joyous when the soul of the pure and righteous soul comes. Hashem is happy with that soul. That was the hesped that the child said about Rabbi Baruch Huna, maybe also on Rabbi Menuna. The next hesped that the Gemara says is when Ravina died. Kinach Nafshe the Ravina Pasach Alayhu Safdana, the Safdan, the eulogizer, he said about Rabbi Ravina the following hesped. Tomorrow, again, very poetic. Tomorrow meni rosh al tzadika tamor nasim leilus kayomim al mesim leilus kayomim. The palm trees should bend over their head about the tzaddik who's like a palm tree. The tzaddik tamor yifrach, that the tzaddik is compared to a palm tree. It says because he only has one heart, has like one branch. His heart is only dedicated to Hashem. We shall put nights like days on the one who put nights like days. Means that these Talmidei Chachamim, Ravina, when he learned day and night, he wasn't only like he up at night and slept up in the day and slept at night. The night by him was also like the day. He learned the whole night. So we also should make the nights to be like the days, that we should say them. Not only the daytime, even the nights should be awake, just the way he was awake at night in order to learn Torah. The next one is about Rav Ashi. He was alive still, but he was speaking to two Safdanim. There's a Safdan in those days was not Tafka Talmud Chacham. It was a person, nowadays we don't have this, but there used to be an art of saying a eulogy. So Rav Ashi asked the eulogizers what they're going to say. In our case, that seems to say that he was asking what they're going to say when he's going to die. Rav Ashi was asking the Safdan, when I'm going to die, what kind of eulogy are you going to say? There's another gear that seems to say, Rav Ashi asked to these Safdanim, what are you going to say about Ravina? Rav Ashi and Ravina were contemporaries, and Ravina died, and Rav Ashi asked the Safdanim, what are you going to say about Ravina? Amalei Rav Ashi the Bar Kipuk. One was called Bar Kipuk, and one was called Bar Oven. There were two Safdanim. There were two eulogizers. So Rav Ashi asked Bar Kipuk, what are you going to say about a eulogy? Either of his own eulogy or the eulogy of Ravina. So he said, I'm going to say the following eulogy. Ibba Rozim Nachla Shalabes Mayasu Ezobekir. The Vyasin Bachaka Hu Allah Mayasu the Gay Rekek. And Benachal Shotef Nafla Shachaka Mayasu May gave him. Three Mishalim, three comparisons of what it is when the great tzaddik dies. If in the big cedar trees the flame fell on it, means that the flame was able to burn even a big cedar tree. So what are the grasses that are growing out of the wall, as over here, hyssop that goes out of the wall, what are they going to do? If the flame was able to burn even the great cedar tree, the great tzaddik, what could everybody else expect? And the second mashal, Levyasan b'chaka hu Allah mayasu the gay rakik. Even the big Levyasan, like a big whale, he was caught in a fishing hook. So what are the small fish that are around the pond, what's going to be with them? And the third mashal, v'nachal shotef naflachaka mayasa gemei gave him. If even in the great flooding river, the chaka was the hook was able to catch over there, what's going to be with a small bore, a small well of water? So that's the poetic hesped he was going to say either about Rav Ashi or Ravina. But so the other Safdan Bar Oven, he wasn't happy. These are the two Safdan, Bar Kipuk and Bar Oven. So Bar Oven said, Chas v'shalom dechaka b'shaleves b'sadiki. I mean, I'm not going to say hesped like that. He told his partner, that's not a good hesped. You're talking about a tzaddik that when he dies, it's like he was caught in a fishing hook. Or to say that a flame burnt him, that's not proper to say about a tzaddik. So my Ahmed, what are you going to say? You, Bar Oven, what are you going to say about hesped? I'm going to say this following. Also, everyone's very poetic. Cry for the mourners, not for the lost. Means cry for the relatives, not for the other people, not for the one who died, not for the lost object. Cry for the ones who are missing him. The mace is going to rest. He doesn't have a problem, but we're the ones who are going to be sighing. But Rav Ashi was not happy about these hespedim. Two different pshatim, either because if he was about himself, so he wasn't happy about the chaka, the fishing rod, the fishing hook, and flame, and also even the second one was not much better because he called him an Aveda. It wasn't proper to call the tzaddik that he's a lost object. And the other shot that it was about the Ravina, so he wasn't happy how they were comparing him to Ravina, that he's called the Azov, he's called the gay Rakek, all these things. So he wasn't. Rashi wasn't happy about that, and he didn't curse them or anything. But in the fact that he was insulted or slighted, their feet turned backwards. Somehow they became blemished. Their feet, they weren't able to walk, and they weren't able to go to the hesped. Rashi maybe says that they didn't want to go, but I think the other versions say that they weren't able to walk. They didn't come to the masperim. Hashem orchestrated; they shouldn't be able to come. So this happened in Rabashi's lifetime, that they became deformed. And Rabashi, when he wanted to use a mashal of somebody who can't walk because his foot is deformed, so he used the mashal of these two people, Bakipuk and Barovin, and he said that by chalitza, there wouldn't be a kosher chalitza. If the case would be that they would have a person who's like him, that would have had, his brother would have died without children, and he'd have to do chalitza in order to release the sister-in-law, it wouldn't be kosher because it has to be that the person doesn't have a deformed foot. And they did. So that's the mashal of Bakipuk and Barovin, because they became deformed because of the hesped that they wanted to say. That's the end of that story about Ravashi. The next one starts about Rava. But this was not now. The Gemara is not going to talk about a spade in Dafka. Rava, something about people that said some kind of they were composing different, before it was a hesped, now it's going to be a kind of a tefillah. Rava Kiavasa Ludiglas, Amalei, Barovin, Kum Ema Milsa. This is also Barovin. He also was a Saftan, but also he was able to compose prayers. So when Rava came to Diglas is the Tigris River. He had to cross the Tigris River, and maybe it was dangerous. Also, some say another Pshat Rashi Ksaviyad brings down that maybe it was overflowing and it was dangerous. So he asked Barovin to compose a prayer, say something. Amar. So this is what Barovin composed. Bo Rov Shlishis b'Mayim Zachor v'Rachem Ta'inu me'acharecha Kisha me'Baila. That was the tefillah that he made up. But most of shlishas came into water. So shlishas, Rashi says, means Am Yisrael, and it's based on a pasuk in Yeshaya, I think, that calls Am Yisrael shlishiyah, and Rov shlishiyah. So shlishas would mean that Rava is considered like Rov of Am Yisrael. So it's a very poetic way of saying that Rava, who's so great, like he's comparable to Rov of Am Yisrael, came into water. Hashem, remember and have compassion. We have gone astray from you like a woman from her husband. Don't forsake us. So they say Osmei Mora means like Mayim Hamorim. I thought it meant Memorim meant like the place where the bitter waters became sweetened, like over there it says in Parshas B'Shalach. But the Mefarshim here say that it means like Memorim, like Mayim Hamorim of a sota, that just like over there you made a way that the sota could become mutter to her husband, so also save us. That was the tefillah that Bar Avin composed, a tefillah when Rava was crossing the Tigris River. The Gemara continues a new point. Rav Chanan Chasnei de Ben Nasi Havo Loka Havo Lei Beni. Rav Chanan was the son-in-law of the Nasi, and he didn't have children, he didn't have sons. They prayed, and he had sons. But then the day that his son was born, he died. So the Saftan eulogized, said about Rav Chanan the following eulogy. Simcha latuga nepcha, sasan v'yagon nitbaku, beisim chaso nenach, beis chaninaso avat chanina. The joy was changed into an agony. Joy and agony met, nitbaku, they came together. Beisim chaso nenach, at the time of his joy, he sighed, means Rav Chanan. Now, he was happy that he had a child, but he died right away. Beis chaninaso avat chanina. At the time of the chanina, that means the child became, at the time that the child which was graced, he lost his father. Why is it called Chanino? I'm not sure if I have a shot over there. So I don't get exactly the translation, but it would mean that the son who was the grace that Hashem had showed to Rav Chanan, now the one who would grace him means his father was lost. And all this rhymes with his name. His name was Chanan, Rav Chanan. So here you have about Chaninasa, Chanino, probably that's what the eulogizer meant to say. Also, they gave a name to the child, the same as his father. His father died by his birth. So when they gave him a name, they gave him the name of his father, Rav Chanan bar Rav Chanan. The next story, when Rav Yochanan died, Rav Yitzchak ben Elazar said the following eulogy. That this day is difficult, Am Yisrael, like a day that the sun set noontime. That it seems that it was a sudden, maybe Abraham was in the middle of his life, I don't recall how old Rabbi Yochanan was when he died, but the fact that he died, it was like the sun set in midday. There's a pasuk like that, pasuk in Amos, when it says about a curse, it says Hashem was going to make that the sun should set in midday. When Rabbi Yochanan died, that's what it was comparable to, like the sun came down in midday. Rabbi Yochanan himself said in that pasuk, it's referring to Yoshio, who was killed. Over there it says the story of Paro Necho, and Yoshio went to fight with him, and he was killed. And it seems that he was killed in the prime of his life. That's called that Bo Hashemesh Basarayim, the sunset noontime. So this story, Rabbi Yochanan, this time that he died, Rabbi Yochanan, so his Talmidim, Rabbi, he sat Shiva on his Rebbe, Shiva Shloshim. He kept Shiva and Shloshim to mourn for his Rebbe, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Abba, the son of Rabbi Barabba, we had him before already. He said that Rabbi Ami, he did his own thing. It means it was his own chumrah to do, or his own shita, or his own chumrah, because it's not really necessary to sit Shiva and Shloshim on a Rebbe. That there's no such thing as Shiva and Shloshim for a Rebbe, it's only one day. There is a kind of a sitting mourning for a Rebbe when a Rebbe dies, but only one day. But on the father, it's Shiva, Shloshim, but that doesn't apply to a Rebbe. Even though we did see that there are some things that a person does for a Rebbe, like we said, to Tira Kriya, and here and also it says called Korana, called Cholzin, called Mavin Allah, but here it says and here it says also there is a veilus of one day, but it doesn't have a veilus of 7 days. The next story, now is also not a story, but a spade. When Abzera died, the eulogizer said the following: Eretz Shinar. This we had in Maseches Megillah. Says on the side, Megillah the above. We had over there to talk about Tveria. Rakas is Tveria. We brought this down. Eretz Shinar Harabi Yalada. Eretz Tzvi Geba Hashashuah. Ayin Allah Amar Rakas Kiyav the Klechem Dasa. Eretz Shinar. That's Babel. So over there, Abzera was born in Babel, and then he came to Eretz Yisrael. And that's what Rashi points out, that sometimes you find him called Rav Zera, sometimes Rabbi Zera. A person who has smicha is called Rabbi, and there's no smicha in Chutz. So first he was called Rav Zera. When he came to Eretz Yisrael, he's called Rabbi Zera. So it depends. When you see a statement, you have to know if you see, you can notice from the name Rav Zera, Rabbi Zera, when he said it. Did he say it when he was in Babel, or did he say it when he was already in Eretz Yisrael? So the land of Shinar, Babel, was pregnant, Hara, Hirayon, and it gave birth. I mean, that's where he was born. But Eretz Tzvi, Gidla Shashuah. But the land of Eretz Yisrael is called Eretz Tzvi, the beloved land, the delightful land. That is the one that raised its delight, Shashuah. Woe says Rakas about herself that she lost her delightful kli. So the Rakas that over there says is Tveria. That's probably where he lived. And Tveria lost the kli chemda, which was Abzera, who lived in Tveria. That was the hesped they said on Abzera. The rest of the Gemara till the bottom of the page doesn't say Hesped, but it says that things happen when certain people were nifter. So like the world went crazy. Like even the teva, things happened in the nature that were against nature because these people died. Maybe some of them are going to be symbolic of something. It doesn't say by all of them. Rabbi Avo was in Caesarea. That's where it's Caesarea. So when he died, so then the pillars of Caesarea let down water. It means it started coming out water out of the pillars. That's why she says maybe as a sign of crying. To Rabbi Yossi, when Rabbi Yossi died, Shafu Marzavi de Tzipora Dama. So then the gutters of Tzipori, that's where Rabbi Yossi lived, so they were flowing blood. To Rabbi Yaakov, when Rabbi Yaakov died, it's Chamiu Kokfei B'Yamama. There were stars seen in the daytime. The Rabbi Yassi, when Rabbi Yassi died, all the trees were uprooted. I guess it was a big storm or something, whatever happened, but all the trees were uprooted when Rabbi Yassi died. The Rabbi Chia, when Rabbi Chia died, the Chis were keeping the new Rabbi Chia. It came out, Rashi says keeping means stones. Stones, fire came out of the sky. I guess some kind of comet or whatever it might be. The Rabbi, a shooting star, whatever, a meteorite, whatever they call them. The Rabbi Nachem, and Rabbi Nachem died, Ishta'ud Salmanaya, Behevul Machlatzaya. So the Salmim, things that had some kind of an engraving on it, so it became smoothed out. Rashi brings down that Rabbi Nachem, that he never looked at a coin. The Gemara says he was called B'nai Shel Kedoshim, and he never looked at a figure that was a human figure, even though it was not Avodah Zarah. He was machmer not to look at it because it has some resemblance to Avodah Zarah. So in that schus that he was so machmer, so also any kind of tzelem became smoothened out. So that's what Rashi says, machlatzaya, similar to the word we had over there by fixing a roof over there in Chol Hamoed. So it says about a Magela and a Mechletzayim. So it's the same thing. Rashi says Mechletzayim is some kind of a tool which is used to smoothen out. So when Tanchum Bar Chia died, is Katzitzu Kolan Dartaya. All of the statues got broken down. Rabbi Yashiv, when Rabbi Yashiv died, we're not familiar with him. We don't have him too much. Rabbi Yashiv of the Gemara. 70 tunnels were tunneled in Adamis Ganovim, like in Machtaras, if Parshas Mishpatim, that a tunnel to go to steal. So in his case, the Ganovim were held back, but when he died, so then even 70 tunnels were tunneled to steal. The Rav Menuna, when Rav Menuna died, the Chisu Kipi Devar de Merkia, it came down stones of hail from the heavens. The Rabbi Rav Yosef, when Rabbi Rav Yosef died, Nasha Kipi the Pras Adadi, the edges of the river Pras. What does Rashi say? Keep Rashi says in the bottom, I'm sorry, Rashi on the bottom says, keep Oshel Gishar Nishabu Neshku Zabazeh. The bridges broke and they would meet each other, the two edges of the bridge that after it broke. So that would be, of course, the river Pras, there were some bridges, that's how Rashi learns. And when Rabbi Rav Yosef died, so they didn't die at the same time because Rabbi had the Gemara that says Rav Yosef lived 2.5 years after Rabbah. He was the Rosh Yeshiva after Rabbah, so they didn't die at the same time. Abba and Rabbah also, I think the Gemara says they didn't die at the same time, but it means when both of them, each one of them died, that's what happened. And Abba and Rabbah Nasha keep it the Diglas Adadi, the same thing whatever was by the Pras and the Diglas. Pras is the Euphrates and the Diglas is the Tigris River. Rabbah lived on the Mechuzah, which is the other side of the Diglas. So when they died, so also this thing happened that the bridges broke. And the last thing, Kinach Nafshi Rabbi Shasha, Ton Dikli Shitzi. So the Dikli is a palm tree, and Shitzi, Rashi says, is some kind of kotzim, thorns. So it's the Teva changed, and palm trees, they gave out thorns. All these things were simanim that a great person died, and the Teva went haywire. Yashikar everybody, and we'll be continuing in a couple of minutes with Pirkei Avos. Yashikar, thank you everybody.